There are certain names in Chicago that you do not say wrong. Not because of a rule written down somewhere. Not because somebody made an announcement. But because the streets have a memory, a long, unforgiving memory. And in certain zip codes, disrespecting the right name carries consequences that no apology can walk back. Chief Keef is one of those names. Not just a rapper. Not just a streaming number. A symbol. A monument. The kid from O'Block, from Parkway Gardens on the south side of Chicago, who took the sound of a city that the world had written off and turned it into a global movement before he was old enough to legally drink. Drill music. The genre that changed everything. That came from him. From his block. From his people. So when Lul Timm, a name that, according to social media users and hip-hop commentary channels, had been making noise in certain circles, allegedly made comments that were received as direct shots at Chief Keef, the reaction was not slow. It was not measured. It was not a Twitter argument. According to multiple accounts circulating across social media platforms in the days following the incident, O'Block members showed up. In person. And what happened next? The confrontation that was caught, commented on, and debated across every hip-hop platform within 48 hours, was not just a beef between two names. It was a reminder that in Chicago, legacy is not just respected. It is protected. To understand why this confrontation hit the way it did, you have to understand what O'Block actually is. O'Block is the street name for Parkway Gardens, a public housing complex on the south side of Chicago, specifically in the Woodlawn neighborhood. It is one of the most documented, most discussed, and most misunderstood locations in the entire history of American street culture. A place where, according to city crime data and decades of journalism, poverty and violence compounded on each other for generations in ways that produced both devastating loss and somehow, extraordinary creativity. It is the place that produced Chief Keef. And because it produced Chief Keef, it became something larger than a housing complex. It became an identity. A flag. A line in the sand. Chief Keef, born Keith Farrell Cozart on August 15, 1995, grew up inside that reality. According to public records and extensively documented reporting, he was already navigating the juvenile justice system before he was a teenager. He was placed on house arrest at 16. And it was during that house arrest, confined to his grandmother's home on the south side, that he recorded the music that would change the trajectory of hip-hop permanently. I Don't Like dropped in 2012. He was 16 years old. The record did not just chart. It restructured the conversation about what rap could sound like. The production, dark, minimalist, percussion-heavy, combined with Keef's flat, affectless delivery created something that felt genuinely new. Kanye West remixed it. Interscope Records came calling. A kid on house arrest in Chicago became, almost overnight, one of the most talked about figures in the music industry. But here is what that rise meant beyond the music industry. It meant that O'Block had a flag planted in the culture. It meant that the neighborhood, the specific block, the specific people, the specific code of loyalty that governed life there, was now connected to something the whole world was watching. And in street culture, that kind of connection creates a responsibility that goes both ways. The block elevates the artist. And the artist, by carrying that name, becomes a representative of everything the block stands for. That is not a metaphor. That is a lived reality for everyone who came up around Chief Keef. So when, according to social media accounts and commentary that spread rapidly across platforms including Twitter, Instagram, and multiple hip-hop YouTube channels, a figure identified as Lul Timm made statements that were widely interpreted as mocking Chief Keef, the response was never going to be a strongly worded comment section reply. Now here is the part people keep missing. Lul Timm, according to available public information and social media presence, is a Chicago area rapper who had been building a profile in the city's drill scene. The specific details of his background, his neighborhood affiliations, his relationships within Chicago's complex street geography, matter enormously here, because in Chicago's drill scene, where you are from and who you are connected to determines how your words land. A comment that might be dismissed in one context becomes a direct provocation in another, depending entirely on who is speaking and what flag they are flying when they say it. According to social media users and hip-hop commentary accounts who were tracking the situation as it developed, Lul Timm's alleged comments about Chief Keef were not interpreted as casual disrespect. They were interpreted as something more deliberate, more pointed. And the distinction between those two things is everything in a culture where intent and interpretation carry real-world consequences. To understand this, we have to go back even further. Chief Keef's relationship with Chicago, and specifically with the communities and individuals connected to O'Block, has always been complicated by distance. According to extensively reported public records, Keef relocated from Chicago years ago, spending significant time in Los Angeles and later establishing himself in various locations outside of Illinois. His relationship with law enforcement in Illinois, which included multiple legal incidents documented in public court records, made his presence in the state complicated for extended periods. But distance, in this context, does not mean disconnection. Not from O'Block. Not from the people who came up with him, who carry his name in their music, who built their own identities in the shadow and the light of what he created. The loyalty that O'Block extends to Chief Keef is not contingent on his physical presence in Chicago. It is historical. It is foundational. It is the kind of loyalty that does not expire. And that is precisely what made Lul Timm's alleged comments so combustible. Because you are not just talking about a rapper who moved to LA. You were talking about the person whose name is inseparable from an entire block's identity. An entire neighborhood's claim to cultural significance. You were, whether you intended to or not, talking about something that people in that circle have lost friends over, have been to funerals over, have carried grief over for years. According to reports that circulated across social media in the days leading up to the confrontation, there had already been tension building before things went public. Hip-hop commentary channels, several of which have tens of thousands of subscribers and track Chicago drill beef with detailed attention, were reporting that Lul Timm's statements had been circulating within certain circles before they became a wider internet conversation. Which means that by the time the confrontation allegedly happened, it was not a spontaneous reaction. It was, according to these accounts, the end point of a tension that had been accumulating. That right there is the part that changes how you understand everything that followed. Because a spontaneous confrontation and a deliberate one are two completely different things. A spontaneous reaction is emotion. A deliberate confrontation is a statement. And according to the social media accounts and hip-hop commentary that documented the situation as it unfolded, what O'Block members allegedly brought to Lul Timm was not just emotion. It was a statement. The confrontation, according to multiple accounts posted across social media platforms, accounts that were widely shared and commented on within the hip-hop community, was direct. According to these reports, O'Block-affiliated individuals made contact with Lul Timm in a setting that social media users described in detail, though the exact location and precise timeline have not been independently verified by major news outlets as of the time of this script. What has been documented, through the social media posts, the commentary channel breakdowns, and the reaction videos that accumulated hundreds of thousands of views within 48 hours of the incident becoming public knowledge, is that the confrontation was real, that it was intense, and that it sent a message that the Chicago drill community received loud and clearly. And then the internet got involved. The footage, whatever version of it existed, in whatever form it circulated, hit social media with a specific kind of velocity that only happens when a story touches something that people already have strong feelings about. This was not a slow burn. This was immediate. Within hours of the first accounts of the confrontation spreading, the hashtags were moving. Hip-hop Twitter, which has always functioned as its own kind of real-time courtroom for exactly these situations, was already dividing into camps. Commentary channels were uploading reaction videos before most of their audiences had even seen the original content. The architecture of internet hip-hop discourse, which moves with extraordinary speed when a Chicago story drops, had fully activated. And the reaction was not uniform. Not even close. According to social media posts and commentary that accumulated across platforms in the immediate aftermath, there were broadly three camps forming in real time. The first camp, and based on engagement numbers reported by various commentary accounts, arguably the largest, sided with O'Block without hesitation. Their argument, expressed across thousands of comments and reply chains, was essentially simple: you do not mock Chief Keef and expect nothing to happen. You do not take shots at the foundation of drill music, at the person who built the platform that every Chicago rapper after him has benefited from, and then act surprised when the block responds. According to these social media users, what happened to Lul Timm was not just foreseeable, it was, in their framing, appropriate. The second camp pushed back on that framing. According to commentary from this side of the conversation, the concern was not about Chief Keef's legacy or O-Block's loyalty. It was about the normalization of physical confrontation as a response to words. Several commentators, including some with significant followings in the hip-hop commentary space, argued that regardless of what Lul Timm allegedly said, the escalation to a physical or near-physical confrontation represented exactly the cycle that has cost the Chicago drill community so many of its most important figures. The third camp, smaller but present, raised questions about the full story. According to these voices, the context of what Lul Timm actually said, and whether it genuinely constituted the level of disrespect being attributed to it, had not been fully established. They argued that the internet had moved to reaction before the facts were fully in view. All three perspectives were circulating simultaneously. All three were generating engagement. And the algorithm, which does not distinguish between outrage and support, was amplifying all of it equally. Now here's the part people keep missing. The cultural mechanics of what happened here are inseparable from the specific history of Chicago drill, a history that includes not just extraordinary music but extraordinary loss. According to public records, journalism, and the extensively documented history of the Chicago drill scene, a significant number of the artists who came up alongside Chief Keef and represented O-Block and the broader South Side drill movement have died violently or are currently incarcerated. Fredo Santana, Keef's cousin and one of the foundational figures of the drill era, died in 2018 at 23 years old from a seizure, according to widely reported accounts. Lil Jojo, whose beef with O-Block was publicly documented and extensively reported, was shot and killed in 2012. The list extends further and deeper than any single video can contain. This context matters because it is the context inside which O-Block members process disrespect toward Chief Keef's name. This is not abstract. This is not internet drama. For the people who lived through that era, who attended those funerals, who carried those losses, who watched the drill movement become a global phenomenon while simultaneously watching it consume people they loved, Chief Keef's name is not just a brand. It is a monument to a specific, painful, irreplaceable moment in their lives. When Lul Timm allegedly mocked that name, he was not, in the perception of O-Block-affiliated individuals according to social media accounts, making a music industry comment. He was, whether he understood it or not, reaching into something much deeper than that. But here's what really happened on the other side of this equation. According to social media posts attributed to individuals in Lul Timm's circle, and according to commentary from accounts that were tracking his side of the story, the characterization of his original comments as deliberate disrespect was disputed. According to these accounts, what Lul Timm allegedly said was either taken out of context, misrepresented in its circulation, or was not intended as the direct shot that O-Block members received it as. That dispute, that gap between how the words were sent and how they were received, is not just relevant to this specific situation. It is the story of how a significant number of Chicago drill conflicts have originated and escalated over the past decade, according to reporting and documentary accounts that have examined the drill scene in depth. A comment made in one context gets clipped, shared, reframed, and delivered to an audience that receives it with completely different eyes. The internet compresses the distance between cause and consequence in ways that make de-escalation nearly impossible. By the time both sides have a chance to have a direct conversation, if they ever do, the reaction has already happened. And the reaction, in this case, according to the social media documentation, was significant enough to become a story that spread beyond Chicago, beyond the drill community, into the broader hip-hop conversation about loyalty, legacy, and what it means to carry a block's name in your music. Same day, same story, and the commentary channels were already framing this as a defining moment. Not just for Lul Timm, who was now navigating a situation that had escalated far beyond whatever he had originally anticipated, but for the broader question of Chief Keef standing in Chicago, a standing that, according to social media reaction, remained essentially untouchable regardless of how many years had passed or how far from the South Side his career had taken him. Because here is the thing about legacy in street culture that outside observers consistently underestimate. It does not diminish with distance. It does not weaken with time. If anything, according to the social media commentary that was processing this situation in real time, the fact that O'Block members responded the way they allegedly did, years after Chief Keef's initial rise, years after he had relocated, years after the first wave of drill had already transformed into something new, was itself proof of how durable that loyalty actually is. And Lul Timm, according to all available accounts, had not fully calculated for that durability. That right there is where everything changed. The aftermath of a confrontation like this one does not end when the confrontation ends. In the age of social media documentation, the aftermath is often longer, louder, and more consequential than the original incident. Because once something becomes content, once it enters the algorithm, gets clipped, gets reacted to, gets debated across hundreds of videos and thousands of comment sections, it takes on a life that no one involved in the original moment has any control over. And that is exactly what happened in the days following the alleged O'Block confrontation with Lul Timm. According to social media activity tracked by multiple hip-hop commentary channels, the story went through several distinct phases in its public life. The first phase was raw reaction, people sharing what they had heard, seen, or been told about the confrontation, with a kind of urgency that characterizes breaking news in a hip-hop internet space. The second phase was analysis, the commentary channels, the breakdown videos, the long-form reactions from accounts that specialize in Chicago drill specifically and who brought historical context to what had happened. The third phase, which according to social media observers began within roughly 72 hours of the story breaking, was the loyalty declaration phase, artists, affiliated individuals, and fans publicly stating their positions in terms that were unambiguous. Now here's the part people keep missing. Lul Timm's position in all of this, his public response, or the relative absence of one, depending on which accounts you follow, became its own story within the story. According to social media commentary, the way a person responds to a confrontation of this nature carries as much cultural weight as the confrontation itself. Silence can be read as wisdom or as fear, depending entirely on who is doing the reading. Public statements can de-escalate or accelerate, again depending entirely on context and execution. According to available social media documentation, Lul Timm's response to the situation, whatever form it took, did not fully satisfy either camp. Those who sided with O'Block felt that no response could be adequate given the nature of the original alleged disrespect. Those who had been more measured in their assessment of the situation felt that the full context of what Lul Timm actually said had still not been clearly established in the public record. And that ambiguity, that unresolved space between allegation and confirmation, is where this story, like so many Chicago drill stories before it, currently lives. To understand what this means going forward, we have to look at what has been confirmed versus what remains in the territory of allegation and social media report. What is confirmed, based on publicly available social media documentation and the commentary of multiple hip-hop channels with demonstrated knowledge of the Chicago scene. A confrontation involving individuals affiliated with O'Block and Lul Timm did, according to widespread and consistent accounts, occur. The confrontation was connected to statements attributed to Lul Timm that were received as disrespectful to Chief Keef. The incident generated significant attention across hip-hop social media platforms and commentary channels within a short time frame. What remains in the territory of allegation and unverified report? The precise nature and full content of Lul Timm's original comments. The exact location, participants, and sequence of the confrontation. Whether any physical contact occurred, and if so, the specifics of that contact. Lul Timm's own account of and intentions behind his original statements. These distinctions matter. Not because they change the cultural weight of what happened. The reaction itself, regardless of the precise details of the original incident, is now a documented event in the Chicago drill conversation. But because in a media environment where allegation and fact move at the same speed and often with the same confidence, the people actually involved in these situations deserve the same standard of accuracy that we would want applied to ourselves. Now here is the family angle of this story, the part that the reaction videos and the hot takes almost never get to. Because behind every name in these situations is a human reality that the internet does not see. Lul Timm, whatever his intentions and whatever the full truth of his alleged comments, is a person. A person with people who care about him. A person for whom this situation, the public confrontation, the social media storm, the thousands of comments from strangers declaring what should or should not happen to him, is not content. It is his actual life. And the people who care about him, his family, the people in his circle who were not part of whatever started this, were watching a situation escalate online in real time with no ability to control it. That experience, according to anyone who has been adjacent to internet-amplified beef in the hip-hop space, is genuinely frightening. Not because of the comments themselves, but because of what comments can sometimes translate into in the real world. This is the part nobody is going to make a song about. The mother who sees her son's name trending for reasons that have nothing to do with his music. The friends who are fielding calls asking what is actually happening. The people who know the full context, who were there, who understand what was actually said and meant, watching a compressed, algorithm-optimized version of events spread to an audience of hundreds of thousands who have no access to that context. On the O-Block side of this equation, the family angle is equally present and equally invisible to the internet. The people who felt that Chief Keef's name was disrespected did not feel that way abstractly. They felt it because Chief Keef's name is connected to real people, real losses, real history that they carry personally. The loyalty that allegedly produced the confrontation is not a performance. According to every documented account of O-Block culture, it is the product of shared experience, shared streets, shared grief, shared survival. That shared experience does not translate easily into a 60-second reaction clip. What does this mean culturally? And why does this specific confrontation matter beyond the immediate drama of who said what and what happened next? It matters because it is a window into something that the mainstream music industry and the mainstream media have consistently failed to reckon with honestly. Drill music, which began on the south side of Chicago, which was pioneered by Chief Keef and the artists around him, which has since spread globally and influenced everything from UK drill to Afrobeats to mainstream pop production, emerged from conditions of real violence, real poverty, and real community trauma. The music was never separate from those conditions. It was made inside them, out of them, because of them. The industry that profited from drill, the labels, the streaming platforms, the media companies, has always had a complicated relationship with the authenticity that made the music compelling. They wanted the sound. They wanted the energy. They wanted the cultural credibility. But they did not want to engage seriously with the conditions that produced all of those things. They did not want to talk about what it costs to come from O-Block. What it takes to survive there. What it means to carry a block's name and a block's grief and a block's loyalty into an industry that fundamentally does not understand any of it. And so situations like this one, the confrontation, the social media storm, the allegation and counter-allegation, happen in a vacuum that the industry created. A vacuum where the cultural codes that govern life in these communities meet an internet architecture that was never designed to hold them, and the collision produces exactly the kind of chaos that everybody profits from and nobody takes responsibility for. Chief Keef built something that changed music permanently. O-Block, whatever its complicated history, produced that. The loyalty that allegedly sent members to confront Lul Timm is the same loyalty that held that community together through losses that the rest of the world barely noticed. And Lul Timm, whatever his intentions, whatever the full truth of his original comments, is navigating the consequences of engaging, intentionally or not, with something that carries far more weight than a rap beef. That is the full picture. Not just the confrontation. Not just the social media reaction. Not just the allegation and the counter-narrative and the commentary channel breakdowns. The history. The grief. The loyalty. The cost of building something real in a world that consumes real things for entertainment and moves on. Chicago does not move on. That is the thing. The rest of the internet moves on to the next story in 48 hours. Chicago carries it. O-Block carries it. Chief Keef carries it, wherever he is. And the people connected to all of those names will still be carrying it long after this has stopped trending. That is why this story matters. And that is why, if you are going to say a name in Chicago, you better know what that name means before you say it. If this story made you think, if it made you feel something beyond the surface-level drama of who confronted who and what was said, then you already understand why we cover these stories the way we do. Because it is easy to make a reaction video. It is easy to take 30 seconds of footage or a clipped audio and build a narrative on top of it that gets clicks and moves on. That is not what this channel does. We go deeper. We talk about the history, the family, the loyalty that runs underneath every confrontation, every beef, Every situation that the internet reduces to a meme before the people involved have even had a chance to process what happened to them. Chief Keef's name carries weight because he built something real out of something painful. O'Block carries weight because real people paid real prices to hold that community together through decades of loss. And Lul Timm, whatever the full truth of this situation turns out to be, is a real person navigating real consequences in a world that is watching and commenting and clipping and moving on. We owe all of these stories more than 30 seconds of reaction. If this video gave you something today, a fuller picture, a deeper context, something beyond the headline, then like it. Subscribe to this channel because we are committed to telling these stories with the weight they deserve. Hit that notification bell because the stories we cover next are just as layered, just as important, and just as misunderstood by the internet at large.